Welcome back, movie lovers, to another installment of Cinematic Realms. I'm back in the driver's seat this week. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and fellow cinephile, Amy Blackfire, and we have some special guests this week. We're joined by, you know her as Kelly or Jaded Redhead, fellow X-Men superfan, and another X-Men fan, Amy's friend Jenna. We're so happy to have you guys both. We've been looking forward to this stream for a while, and I think we're all going to have a lot of fun. But I thought I'd, just give Kelly, you've been on here before, but, we'll give both of you guys a chance to introduce yourselves and, just talk a little bit about yourselves and what you do. Jenna, we'll start with you since you're the new guest.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I just nerd out with Amy on about Marvel stuff and just geek stuff. I'm not on any channels or anything. I'm not a streamer, so I just really geek out with Amy.
And Kelly?
Yeah, I'm not really a streamer either. I don't have my own channel or anything, but I do have an Instagram and a Twitter. You can follow me at Jaded Redhead. On Instagram. You can also search for me on Twitter using my name, Kelly Lowry, or Jaded Redhead.
Aaron, I want you to know that I did this on purpose because you and I are going to be streaming together tomorrow, and I was not going to allow you to be happy. So, yeah, I'm calling you out. Everybody who doesn't get this, I have shaved this week, which
is a crime against humanity, according to Aaron. So
yeah, Aaron hates it. So yeah, sorry. This week we're talking about X-Men, and it's primarily our discussion is about the 2000 film, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. But we are honestly just going to go all over the place because I mean, we're not going to be able to talk about X-Men without diving into the comics and especially also the animated series, which Amy, you and I have been watching. We finished up the first season last week. I say finished up. We started and finished up the first season last week because we just sped through it. And honestly, I haven't really done a dedicated watch of that show since I was a kid, and it made me feel like a kid again. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it's been great to see unused pockets and really large hair. It's been really great. A non-depowered Rogue, I'm here for it. So yeah, we've been having a great time watching that. And I think you're totally right, John. We can't really talk about this movie in isolation because the X-verse, if you will, the X universe is so expansive in the comics itself. And then you get to the movies, which then this movie sparks, what we have now, which is the X-Men cinematic universe. So I think that, we can't just talk about it by itself. And, those in the chat that know us know that sometimes we try to put together an outline and we never stick to it. So we've stopped trying. We're just going to go.
Well, especially this one. I had no intention of putting together an outline for this one because it's just going to be all over the place. But I'll start with you, Amy, just in terms of what was your start with X-Men? Like, how did you fall in love with it?
So I knew that the first movie was coming out. I was young at the time, as you know, John and Kelly, who always get on to me for mentioning my age, which is younger. I knew that they were comics, and for basically the Christmas of the year before that it came out, my mom got me a Marvel Unlimited account. We had just gotten a computer. It was a big deal. And so I was reading the X-Men comics online. And I'm going to be very dramatic. It changed my life. X-Men it's probably I'm obviously huge in the Song of Ice and Fire, his Dark Materials, and have you heard of the Poppy War? I'm super into some fandoms, but what? Oh, dang it. It's on my coffee table. Rats. You guys are lucky in the chat this time. You don't get to see it again. But yeah, I'm really big into fandoms, but I think the X fandom was my first fandom, so it really holds a special place in my heart. So I basically went to go see the show with a friend from elementary school, and I ended up seeing all two because the third one was never made. I saw all of the movies with her, so it kind of became our tradition. And I I mean, what I like about it, and I always say this when people ask me why X-Men of all Marvel, and that is because you do have the Avengers, but otherwise this is the only comic where you have a really solid, large team, rather than, you have the Fantastic Four, you have these kind of small, tight-knit groups. But X-Men is really expansive. There's a lot of different mutants that they, you can learn about. They'll kind of focus on a couple here, a couple there. And then they, of course, expand beyond that, like with New Mutants. So it's just a huge universe, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to endure a lot of, positive, Avengers MCU talk on the stream tomorrow. So I'm just going to get it out right now. Like, when I was a kid, Marvel was X-Men. It's what I loved primarily about it. I was also into Spider-Man, but X-Men was very much what I loved. And so I've always been more of a fan of those films. And I think especially, as we say, the first two films, the third one doesn't exist. It's like those films to me had so much heart, and they had things to say, so, about society and things like that. And I just remember, especially the first one, it being kind of the culmination of so many dreams I had as a kid who loved X-Men, and especially I think Aaron kind of mentioned that first scene of the original X-Men, and it really sets the tone for the realism of the world. And I think it really got everything moving with what we know as sort of modern superhero films. And
what made that opening scene especially impactful is there are very few kind of comic book style movies that start out with, hey, feel bad for the villain. He has a real reason for being the quote unquote villain. I mean, I can't really think of any other comic book movie or show that does that right off the bat says, hey, the villain kind of has a point, basically. And that's how I read it, at least, because Magneto is like my second favorite character. I really, really like him.
Yeah. Kelly, tell us about what was your introduction to X-Men?
Oh, I was introduced to X-Men in 1989. So Dark Phoenix Saga, Chris Claremont and John Byrne. And the thing is, Jean Grey was included in the arcade game, the X-Men arcade game, but Phoenix wasn't. And by that point, I don't know if the arcade game was based on the animated series or the animated series was based on the arcade game. I can't remember which one came out first. But yeah, I was aware of a collection of things all at the same time. And started getting into the comics and a little bit into the cartoon. I think at that point I didn't, with school or whoever I was being babysat at the time, couldn't watch the animated series regularly until a little bit later, when it was on, I want to say it was a little bit more friendly to whoever I was being watched by, whether it was this babysitter or that babysitter, who had access to what channels.
Yeah.
Sorry to give away my age.
No, but I just I just have to mention as a sort of the side note that, talking about the comics and stuff, I owe you such a debt of gratitude, Kelly, because when we started talking about X-Men, between you and me, and the fact that I said I had gotten into X-Men through the animated series and wasn't really a comic person that much when I was younger, and you promptly sent me, a whole bunch of wonderful stuff.
Nice.
And I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much.
It stresses me out when people are into comic book characters but don't read the comics. And it's like, here, you must please look at these, please.
I also like whenever people, when we were watching the animated series, John, we basically had a drinking game for whenever Cyclops fainted or was totally useless. And I was like, yeah, in a lot of the eras in the comic books, he is this useless. It's actually quite reflective.
Wait,
of it.
Cyclops?
Yeah. There are he faints a lot, actually. Just next time you're reading the comics, Kelly, he actually faints quite a bit in the comics. Not as much as in the animated series, but he does faint quite a bit.
All right.
He always gets someone always gets kidnapped, and sometimes it's Cyclops.
Yeah, that's true. Well, initially it's all Jean Grey. It's all Marvel Girl. And then Angel gets kidnapped a couple of times.
Angel always getting kidnapped.
Yeah.
Is it because he's rich and they want the ransom?
He's pretty.
He is pretty.
Yeah. I mean, who can resist them wangs?
Worthington.
Sorry.
It's funny because as we were watching the first film last night, I was like, oh, hey, this is actually pretty cool because Cyclops doesn't pass out at any point. But then I realized in film number 2, he has his mind taken over and he's out of the story for, a substantial amount of time, which is pretty much the same as being passed out. So.
The first couple of years, each one really takes their turn being completely and utterly useless or making some stupid bonehead decision. It's always Professor X that's bailing them out, and it's complete BS. Hate it. Oh, and how does Professor X bail them out? By erasing everyone's minds.
Let's talk about how great.
Sorry, our Lord and Savior, Sir Patrick Stewart. I'm so sorry.
With trying to not listen to our opinions on comic Professor X because he only knows this Professor X.
Let's talk about how great Professor X. No.
Actually, in the comics and Magneto go back and forth between being trash people.
Yes, they do.
Before we actually go deep in there, let's move on to Jenna because I really want to hear about how you got started, with X-Men, and I want to hear all about your conversations with. I was about to say young Amy, but the proper way to say that would be younger Amy, probably.
Yeah, so actually the movie was my first introduction to X-Men. And they were, for a while, the only Marvel movies I actually liked. It's sacrilegious, but I really don't like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. They're just memes to me. So anytime any of the new X-Men movies came out, I was all over them. And I don't read the X-Men comic books. I'm sorry, Kelly.
Okay.
I read the wikis, okay? I know what's going on from wikis, and I know what goes on a little bit.
Jenna's address.
And I know a little bit about them, mostly in relation to other characters, because my focus really is the Avengers and Captain Marvel specifically. So pretty much all of my knowledge of Rogue in particular comes from her incident with Carol Danvers in the comic books, where she actually absorbs Carol Danvers' personality when she was Ms. Marvel. So I am probably the least knowledgeable of the 4 of us on this right now because I love the movies. I don't read the comic books, and I've never seen the animated series.
Ooh, no!
See, I
know. It's on Disney Plus. It's on Disney Plus, so I'm gonna watch it. But growing up, I didn't have access to it, so I never got to see that.
Well, 15 minutes into your live stream debut, and we're already canceling you, Jenna.
Yeah, that's fine.
If we can opening her eyes and having her a new experience. The X-Men animated series is a new experience, and it's go for it, dive in.
Yeah, the animated series is absolutely.
And you will never get that theme song out of your head.
Never. Yeah, anyway, we could just basically the whole time just do that. That's the rest of the stream, but
yeah.
But still, and we are here talking primarily about the 2000 film, and I love the film series, especially those first 2 films, Days of Future Past, Logan. But to me, X-Men is and always will be that animated series. When you and I were watching it, Amy, I was like, yes, this is X-Men.
But Jenna and I, during middle school, we had, shout out to Mr. Flores, our English teacher. We would talk to him. It was in between X2 and the movie that never came out after that, and we were kind of predictions, what we think was going on. We would talk, about how they were gonna do Phoenix. So we got really hype at lunchtime talking about X-Men in middle school. Me and Jenna, we were geeks even then. So
yeah, and I don't really. What I remember about Mr. Flores is actually talking about World of Warcraft and Tool. So that's what I remember.
Mr. Flores was just cool to talk to. He really taught me to. It's cute because he calls all of us his X students with an X. Mm-hmm. So X students used to be his students. So yeah, and he could talk to any kid about whatever nerd thing they were in. That was the great thing about him.
I used to talk to him all the time during lunch, after school. Dude was awesome. He still plays World of Warcraft with his wife and their kids.
And he named his second kid Stark. So he's a huge Iron Man fan.
But unfortunately I can't answer your question too well, John. I don't really remember much of the conversations about X-Men. I just know I loved it and I talked to people about it, but Amy remembers more. So
ask Amy what I said.
No, seriously, ask her. I don't really remember anything from middle school.
And then Jenna said Wolverine is overrated, and I'm just kidding.
Maybe a little bit, a little overused.
It's okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But I'll just say that as far as my own love of X-Men growing up, like I said, I hadn't read the comics, although I think I had a couple issues because, like, as an X-Men fan. And as someone who had, my best friend liked to go to the comic book store, so it was kind of impossible that I wouldn't just, occasionally buy an issue or two, but usually it was to kind of, gaze at the beautiful artwork, like on the cover and stuff like that. But primarily I was into the animated series, and that was kind of where my obsession came from. And then when the film was coming out, it was just so unbelievable to see all that stuff come to life, especially, we're kind of joking about the whole Professor X thing, but especially since the animated series mostly paints Professor X in a positive light. I was certainly a fan of the character, and when people were always talking about the fan casting for an X-Men movie, and Patrick Stewart was always kind of like the automatic pick that everybody had. So when it was announced that he was actually going to play the role, that was one of those things. I remember seeing the film, I was like, oh my god, it's just like this thing that's been talked about for years and years, and I'm finally seeing it in front of me. And then moments like when Wolverine's claws come out for the first time, and I just remember being so unbelievably excited.
Yeah, and I remember the first time whenever Logan and Rogue are in the car, in his kind of traveling home, and she goes, "I'm Rogue," and I was in the theaters, I was like, "Yes, she said it! She said the thing!" Woo! And I was so excited to see these characters that I loved on the screen. And what was even better is that a couple of the characters, like Nightcrawler is one of my favorite characters. So then when we got new, more characters in X2, I was really excited. And the way that they actually built up X1 transitioning into X2 is probably one of the most flawless things about this movie, because it kind of sets up each kind of character on their next journey and going into the sequel. And a lot of movies don't do that quite seamlessly. I think X1 is kind of a textbook example of how to set up a sequel.
Yeah, and even the transition from X2 into what would have been X3, because it didn't actually happen. It was kind of the same way of how things are set up.
People that aren't X-Men fans are going to be like, "Gee, I wonder why they didn't end up making that third movie."
But no, you're right. And it's why I was sort of tempted also. We were watching the first one last night, but we were doing so rather late. So I was very tempted to jump right into the second one, but I was like, no, I'll like oversleep so much I won't be ready for the stream today. So I did not do that, but yeah, it is quite beautiful how those films are set up, because it actually does kind of feel like it's one fluid story.
Yeah, and Guilty has a really good point too. X2 had all of that payoff because of that beautiful setup in this film as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and something that I brought up last night, which I want to mention on the stream, is what I really love about that first one is a lot of it is the aesthetic of the film, because I think what was so cool about it at the time is it has an almost kind of, it's a mixture between like futuristic and contemporary. It has a very science fiction feel to it. The production design is very sleek, and so that is part of kind of what I think is so cool about the film and why it still stands up. But yeah, that's not related to anything like character based, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think I said it about 50 times while we were watching last night. Oh my God, Amy, the production design, it's so beautiful. But yeah, so I don't know, what were your, I mean, we kind of talked about, you know, because for some of you, the film was sort of the introduction, but what were your general impressions of the movie when you first saw it? Anyone can start. Well, we'll start with you, Jenna. Yeah, go ahead.
It like blew my mind when I was a kid. I was obsessed with it and I loved it. I'd never seen anything like it before.
Yeah, Kelly?
I wanted more Storm.
Yes, she was my favorite.
Yeah, I wanted a lot more action scenes overall, but I really wanted more Storm.
Yeah, Storm is actually, you know, I said Magneto's my second favorite character. Storm, comic Storm, is my first favorite character. So
I was like, there aren't enough people flying.
Yeah, she to me was a disappointment, and I think a lot of that was the writing, which I will get to. But I do want to say though, they did kind of get the feel of X Mansion really well, and that you had those, and he even has it whenever, you know, Professor X is giving Logan the tour. He like is kind of saying things, and you're seeing all these scenes, and he kind of goes, "Oh, but you know, the mansion is our public face. The lower levels are something different." And it's just exactly how I pictured it. It was this nice, serene, you know, kind of little white bread kind of school for, you know,
it's definitely English Manor House.
Yes, English Manor, exactly. And if you look actually behind, especially whenever Logan is leaving, if you look behind Rogue's shoulders, there are these Ming vases, and I'm just like, this is so like rich dude house mansion. I love it. But the lower levels are exactly kind of how they were in the comics. And, you know, the one thing I will say, of course, other than Storm, the one thing that I left the movie wanting that we didn't get was the Danger Room, and like them actually practicing their powers with, you know, crazy crap flying at them. But I understand some of it's also budget. The Danger Room is obviously very easy to put in a comic, but not so much, you know, IRL. But other than that, I think it had a lot of the basic kind of important part. Yes, I picked out the vases. It had that important, a lot of the tone of X-Men. I think it got pretty well, where especially whenever Wolverine, he kind of is making fun of everyone's name. And he was like, so Storm and Cyclops, right? And I messaged John and I was like, well, what kind of name is Wolverine, right? There's like, it's very ironic, a lot of the dialogue.
Well, I don't think he remembers why he's called Wolverine in the first place. So
yeah, they went with the memory loss Wolverine, so he doesn't remember. But yeah, I really appreciate that they got kind of the feel of X-Men correct in a lot of ways.
Yeah, as far as the Storm thing, yeah, I don't think it was probably in different when I saw the movie as a kid, probably because my favorite characters were being, I felt well represented, but especially as time went on and I had time to take a look at the film overall, it became evident that they didn't quite have her figured out. I think that X2 was an improvement, but it's still not the Storm we get like in the animated series. Amy, we were joking about, all her big proclamations every time she uses her powers, but that is Storm.
Clouds, lend me your wind power so that I might strike down the foe. I mean, I would have literally rather have that than Halle Berry's emotionless face.
That's too campy, though. That's not going to appeal to a mainstream audience.
I know, but God, I love her. I love how dramatic comic book and animated series Rogue is. And, also, if you're just thinking about it, she's also the only character of color. So you're really doing a disservice to representation when she's so dry. And that's not really, a lot of it is not Halle Berry's fault.
No.
Yeah. I don't think that she was, she just didn't have very good material in that first film. This isn't a conversation about X2, but do you guys think that she was improved in the second film?
Yes.
I do think that her character came off much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think especially her interactions with Kurt in the second film. Because she does have compassion, and I think they tried to show that with Senator Kelly, but it didn't quite hit.
She looked so awkward.
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable.
And I think they more properly convey that she's, what a sort of strong member of the team she is in the second film, and she feels like she has much more of a leadership role, which is proper to Storm's character, rather than in the first film where she's just kind of hanging around a lot. So, but let's get into some of the other juicy stuff, which is opinions of Professor X. Because I come off of knowing the character from both the animated series and the films. And in the films, as we've said, he's played by Patrick Stewart, who's pretty much a god, and and can do no wrong. But that is not the Professor X necessarily of the comic books. So I will let you guys go on that. Especially, I know Amy and Kelly, you have.
We have.
I know you guys have a.
Trying to figure out where my hand is.
Everything's backward on StreamYard. I'll say, I know Kelly's definitely going to go off on this, so I'll say my piece right now. There is this one arc in the comic where he just F's off to space with his Scottish girlfriend, and that is comic book Professor X. No sense of responsibility, and he's quite frankly a narcissist. He has, I'll put it this way. He built a child army, and it's named after him. I mean, this guy is kind of all about himself in the comics, and he does have moments. They do kind of try and do that with the prequel stories, with things such as Days of Future Past and such. I know in one of those, Rogue kind of confronts him about it, and so does Beast, saying, it's not about you, Professor X, it's about the kids. So they kind of try to do that the prequel, but these movies don't even go there. They make him this completely irreproachable father figure. And it's not to say that in the comics he isn't that. It's just that in the comics he's a lot more nuanced. And there are a lot of ways that he doesn't do right by his kids, basically.
Yeah, there is a dark underside to his method and his personality as well. And his character goes through kind of fluctuations of dark and light. I feel like the movie kind of highlighted the dynamic between Professor X and Magneto and their relationship. And one of the interactions that we see early on from that screenshot that you had, John, I love that scene when you have like Senator Kelly and the Mutant Registration Act being proposed, and then Jean Grey up there kind of making her arguments. Now you will you will notice that when he interrupts her and tries to ask her a question, he calls her Ms. Gray when she's a doctor.
Yeah.
Now, when he's dying,
Uh-huh.
coming to the mansion, he asks for Dr. Jean Grey.
Yep.
So, looks like he
All
found
of a
his
sudden, he
respect.
needs a doctor.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
there that scene with Charles and Eric specifically, great scene set up, by the way, in that particular chamber. For me personally, Ian McKellen's Gandalf is Gandalf. That is Gandalf. But when he turned around, there was something so cold in his eyes. It was perfect. When he turned around, he looked like he had the potential for just complete cruelty. Have you guys ever seen Apt Pupil?
Yes.
No.
Oh my gosh, he's super creepy.
I saw him in that before he was in this. And it was one of the things where I was like, this guy is going to be a great Magneto.
Yeah. When he turns around, there was a light coming from the other side, and it was like making his eyes appear more gray and also very cold. Like there was no love or compassion, which we start to see a little bit more of in the second movie. But yeah, I thought that was a perfect scene to kind of set up the relationship. And it kind of bookends with the closing scene of them playing chess. But yeah, I did want to point out Senator Kelly, talking down to and interrupting Ms. Gray as she's, arguing against mutant registration.
And I think he would have been a little bit nicer if a man was up there
That's
talking
right.
about it. So that's right, drink people,
Right.
effing patriarchy.
I even said last night, and Amy, when I got to that scene where he shows up at the mansion, I'm like, oh, now you're looking for a Dr. Jean Grey because you need help now. I see. So yeah, it's Bruce Davidson is great at playing assholes, basically. I know I've seen him in a few other things. I can't think off the top of my head. I know he was in an episode of Battlestar Galactica where he played a doctor who was basically poisoning, certain members of the human race who belong to, one planet or whatever. And it's like, I totally believed from the get-go, yeah, he's doing that because he's an ass. But he's so good at playing that, and I think he does an excellent job as Senator Kelly, just this guy that you want to strangle. Especially, you talked about that scene on the helicopter, Amy.
Yes, that scene gets
when
me every time.
You find out that it's Mystique who's right there.
When I first heard her theme, that I was like, oh, it's her. She's changing. Ah. And I love then when she appears later, they have that same theme. And it's, first of all, Mystique deserves the world. So she definitely should have her own theme. X-Men is so good at quote unquote villains because Mystique is also, in the comics for sure, one of the more well-developed villains. And I always say quote-unquote villains because, like I said, I kind of get where Magneto is coming from. But I loved it in the helicopter, and a lot of the reason that I like that is you have a lot of it kind of presages some attitudes at the time, and that their current had a current uptick of, well, we're Americans, let's let the rest of the world deal with mutant problems in their own way. And I was just like, banging my head against the wall. It was too apt. Rewatching this was a little scary, actually, because this is 2000. This was even,
and it's so currently relevant. It's
and this was even before 9/11 too. So it was like, it was really scary how pegged they have. Like sorry, they really knew what human nature is like. Put it that way. They had it down.
Yeah.
Not to say that again.
Yeah, it's one of the things that kind of disturbs me more and more as I go back to this film and the X-Men in general, is that when I was a kid, this stuff, like, I recognize that, the sort of anti-mutant people were supposed to be, human beings who of a certain, political affiliation, but it always felt kind of like over the top and fictional as a kid. And now as over the years as I've gotten older, and especially now, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, of course, that seems obvious
Checks out.
that there are people that hateful towards a certain group, and it's really sad that that I've grown into that of sort of acceptance of that's the way the human race is, unfortunately.
That's the scene up to the helicopter when he's getting out of the car and there's a bunch of people with picket signs. There's one that says "Send mutants to the moon," which, if you're a comic fan, is hilarious.
Yes,
it's very quick. It's a little Easter
I
egg.
didn't even see that. Oh my god, that's perfect.
It was a lot of like, keep our children safe, but there was one that was like, "Send the mutants to the moon," and I'm like, ha ha ha.
Clever.
Perfect.
I love it.
Yeah, it's just really uncomfortable, and then looking at that, that Senate scene, it's just horrifying to watch a politician, just saying those things. It just feels so reminiscent of what we go through in modern times and what we have to hear. So,
and what's happened before that, Magneto says, I've heard this before, right?
Yeah.
And what I love about the first movie, and I think what maybe one of the few things that is about it that is stronger than the second movie, is actually that it leans into those symbols. It has the Senate scene, it has that flashback of Magneto, and the final battle is literally at the Statue of Liberty. And they talk about how Ellis Island was once this place to welcome immigrants, and now it's this place where they're going to talk about basically oppressing mutants. So it leans into the political symbols and is not and I think that was quite bold at the time, actually, to have a comic book movie that had so many messages that could be taken as political at the same time.
Yeah, and which is why I kind of view this as a different kind of movie also than any of the later films that followed, even X2. Kelly, you were commenting on how you wanted more action scenes. I think one of the strongest things about this movie is actually the fact that it doesn't lean into action territory. I think it's much more about sort of interpersonal character relationships and social commentary. And the opening scene kind of sets the stage for that. When I just remember watching this movie, and it's kind of like, am I in the right movie? Because it's, it opens like it's a World War II Holocaust film.
I appreciate some of the smaller interactions as well. And I did notice last night when I was doing a rewatch some things that I had not noticed before. Recalling some things about certain story arcs in the comics. I love the fact that when Magneto has Wolverine's tag from Weapon X, and he looks at his own tattoo of the serial number on his arm, and he leaves it there. And I thought it was a nice touch to have Victor Creed Sabretooth grab it and keep it. I think it was more like a trophy for him, but also like because they got history.
Yeah.
And this is a good question by Aegon. I definitely think that played a role, because I think I looked it up, and I think X2 came out in 2004, and things were still very raw then. So it was either you're all rah rah America, or you don't address it at all for like 5 years, more than 5 years in media. I mean, there were comedians fired for making jokes. I mean, it was a volatile time if you wanted to do
Dixie
anything.
Chicks.
And the Dixie Chicks, were forced. They lost a lot of money at the time because they couldn't book concerts and such because they were criticizing George W. So I do think that was a huge difference in that. And actually, you mentioned Sabretooth, Kelly. And if we could maybe talk a little bit about character design in general, I was not feeling Sabretooth, and I still don't. And also, I will say there's one shout out to character design, like metatextually, whenever Logan zips it up and he's like, what's up with these, basically. And then Cyclops goes, what would you prefer? Yellow spandex, which is the original costumes and is in the animated series, that yellow spandex. So there's also meta commentary on character design as well. But Sabretooth never quite did it for me in this movie. He didn't necessarily need to look as kind of crazy as the animated series, but he kind of just looked like a hobo in this movie.
I like at one of the last parts of the film when they see let's see. Senator Kelly's assistant that Mystique replaced, they're like, the body of such and such assistant to Senator Kelly was found. It was apparently mauled by a bear, and it's in the background, so it's like, Sabretooth, gross.
But I just love the way it's throwaway. It's like, as you're walking away from the scene and the volume kind of goes down low, reports say he was mauled by a bear, and it's just. But he's not really the Sabretooth I imagine. But I think the whole thing about, especially this first movie, because they were riding a line of not wanting to appeal to mainstream audiences and not kind of go too far. The design, like for instance, Amy, you just said the design of the animated series probably wouldn't quite work.
No, he looks it's a Halloween costume.
There's some that it just doesn't translate well, to real life when you have the animation and the heroic like costume designs, and when you see it in real life, you're like, man, that's very like visually offensive.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how the MCU goes with some of these costumes, because the Wolverine costume, as much as I love it in like the animated series, I don't think you can do a one-to-one translation of that costume onto screen. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt that now that people are more open to sort of more costumes that are more truthful to the source material. Back then, I don't think you could get away with it. I think that sort of toned down black costumes was the way to go for the time.
So, Hugh Jackman being like huge Jackman, being way too tall for Wolverine. Wolverine's 5'3".
He's a little scrapper.
So you have like this, flamboyant costume to make up for his height. You have the crazy side pieces that come up and the very wide shoulders that come out and up as well. On someone like Hugh Jackman, that's going to look absolutely ridiculous.
And even like when I go back and I watch X2, especially after becoming more accustomed to his appearance in like the later Wolverine films, like the Wolverine and Logan, when I go back to watch X2 in particular, where they really did the sort of the hair in sort of classic Wolverine style, I'm like, man, they really kind of went for the hair there, didn't they?
I think because they let him go berserker as well. Like he got to see him do his berserker rage.
And I really like this comment by Aaron. Yeah, X-Men does have has always kind of it has real action and real danger, but it has always had a playful tone. And I think with this movie, they wanted to, like John was saying, kind of appeal to a more mainstream, audience who are not going to be into the campiness that is X-Men that we love.
But I would argue that, I mean, I don't know exactly.
Got a John side, Aaron. Good job. It's all you, girl.
Because I do think it works for this incarnation of X-Men. So yeah, I don't know. I think that they do sort of take it seriously, but there's also jokes thrown in there. I mean,
very much like the comics.
Yeah, a perfect example of that is the the Wolverine comment about, the yellow spandex. Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
so
not
used.
disagreeing.
I'm so used to us disagreeing, Aaron. It's just.
Oh my gosh, you guys are going to be so disappointed in me. I totally forgot about the Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah, he's been doing it since the beginning.
I was like, I don't even remember seeing him in the original movie. I was just like, oh my God, there's Stan Lee. Why didn't I realize that?
I didn't know about it either, Kelly. I know he does the cameos, but I don't always catch them. Where was he in this?
He's on the beach when Senator Kelly comes up,
yes!
and that kid's
okay.
He's next to the hot dog vendor.
Okay. I missed that. I'm gonna have to watch that.
I'm gonna have to rewatch
that. Okay, so I don't feel so bad. I was just kind of like, that's not a part I was paying a lot of attention to anyway.
Yeah, as they got much more aggressive with the cameos, as as Marvel films went on, and especially now in the MCU, it's like, do you see him? Do you see him? He's right there.
He's got a page of dialogue.
And I do like this comment by Aaron. I don't think overall it was badly written. I specifically have problem with Storm's lines.
And considering that she is one of the very, very few people of color.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, especially because her personality is so stand out in the comics and the animated series. So because of that, they really I would say the only other example of that perhaps would be Rogue, who literally in the comics and in the animated series is like, you look more nervous. Wait, I gotta get the Southern accent. Hold on. You look
Southern Belle.
Oh my God, I got into a sort of British. Well, you look nervous like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. She has these really silly things. And she's kind of a little bit more happy-go-lucky, sort of, just kind of, a little pessimistic, but still kind of what can you do in the comics and in the show? And I get that she is younger in this movie, obviously, and she's very scared and lost and all of that. I get, but once she was in the X Mansion, I was hoping she would get a little bit more of that sarcastic personality.
Well, I think also they were using her as sort of...
Oh, she was talking about Twilight. That wasn't poorly. Well, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that Rogue in the films is used as an entry point into... Well, both her and Logan are, but she's sort of the audience of being exposed to
example
what mutants are, and so I think that it was kind of inevitable that she's portrayed as a little unsure and hesitant and stuff like that, but that's something that I think was fine for the first movie. I think they could have definitely moved more towards the traditional Rogue character in this. I almost said sequels, but sequel is what I mean.
It's fine to have a slip of the tongue now and then, John. I shall allow it.
But like in X2, we also talked about this. I think that they could have expanded her powers and made her, more confident, and she is more confident than in the first film, but taking it further so that she was sort of recognizably the Rogue from the comics and the animated series.
In the second one, when Mystique and Magneto are like, "We love what you've done with your hair," and she takes off her gloves and starts walking towards them. And yeah, girl.
Yeah, that's Rogue. Yeah.
Just for those that don't know, Storm, she's a nudist. She is out there. So having this very quiet, meek version of her is it makes me angry.
Yeah, and I apologize for the limited number of production stills. It's funny, there's it was a transition period of what the studios were doing for official photos. Up to 2000, 2001, they were very sparing with them, and then all of a sudden, and starting in 2010 2 or so, they started to go all out. So, and what's funny is a lot of these pictures actually look much older than they are too. I think it has to do with the sort of transition to digital and all that. But it's funny. I noticed that when I was trying to look up stuff too.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that one's very fuzzy.
Yeah, when I looked in our StreamYard account, since I'm also signed in, I looked and I was like, wow, like 10 or 12 pictures. John was tame this time, but it's actually that
he probably chose the best ones you could find.
But Jenna, what do you think? What do you think about the character design overall?
Yeah, I don't like what they did with Storm. You guys were talking earlier about what you think of Dr. X, right? I just blanked. Sorry, stage fright. Professor X. There we go. I really, no disrespect to Patrick Stewart.
Alicia, I totally said that the other night. I'm sorry. I was like, she married down.
Yeah. I mean, she's basically a goddess in the comic books, isn't she?
She is a goddess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's a major issue. Now that I have more knowledge, going back and rewatching it, she's not the same character at all. Like they made her younger in the story, and there's no reference at all to her past. She's not even the same character. The only similarity is that her ethnicity is, correct, and she has storm powers. But other than that, I really can't recognize her as that character at all.
Yeah, it's something I was thinking about last night. It's the fact that she's basically Halle Berry with, is Storm's powers, but the character itself is, as far as being true to the comics, it's not that character of Storm. So.
No, and even in the reboot, still they didn't get Storm again. I don't know why they keep missing her.
Did it wrong.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, again.
I will say, as much as grief as I give the MCU, I will say I think there's a fairly good chance that we'll see a more authentic Storm.
We totally will.
With that version of the X-Men. So, yeah, I'm not completely negative on all things the MCU, and I do think the MCU is going to be 1,000 times better once they bring in the X-Men. I will say.
Well, Kevin Feige knows what the fans want, and he's not afraid to deliver. So, I think it's going to be great. I think all the characters are going to be more comic book accurate.
Yeah.
And now that Carol Danvers is in the universe, maybe we'll finally get the Rogue Carol Danvers showdown.
And I think AK McGirl has a really good point too, is there is unfortunately Hollywood has a history of when they diversify always picking very light-skinned actors. And this is nothing against Halle Berry. It's just that there have always been very talented actors of color who are of darker skin, and their casting choices are always much more limited than those who have quote unquote lighter skin. And so, I'm not saying that, how dare you, Halle Berry? I'm so against you.
I think Halle Berry was like an it girl at that point.
Yeah, she was also huge at the time.
Bond.
Yeah,
huge at the time. But at the same time, I think this movie does reflect the late 90s, early 2000s, and that it still is stuck in that idea of, if we pick a person of color, then we're diverse, and yet somehow it's always someone who is very light skinned, which that's why I think one of the many reasons that Black Panther was so revolutionary is that you did see very dark skinned people of color, and look, it was great, and they had great acting, and they were very talented. Oh my God, yes. I would so watch that.
Too late for that. It's too late.
Yeah, that won't happen because she's already cast in the MCU. So
yeah, but
Chris Evans. He was Johnny Storm and Captain America.
But that's not in the
MCU.
Yeah, that's not in the MCU. He's only cast as one character in the MCU.
Oh, okay.
But it's a good thing. There's not just one dark-skinned, African American actress out there. So I think they
talented. Exactly.
I think they can figure it out. But yeah, I am looking forward to seeing more accurate versions of the characters, even though I love the majority of what they did casting wise for these films. But you know what? Those films are done, and and I can always sort of love them. So now it's time to go into new territory, and so it'll be interesting to see what they do for those.
It's not going to be for a while. They're probably not coming until Phase 5, but eventually.
Yeah, I still have to wait.
I am glad that Marvel now has the rights, though, just because it doesn't feel complete without X-Men. And there was, I believe, Kelly, you might know for sure, but I believe in the 80s, too, it was the highest selling title, was X-Men. So they made Marvel a lot of money, and they deserve their due. Was that when they were doing Uncanny, Kelly?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Starting in 75.
This girl right here is like basically a comic book wiki.
After the giant size X-Men from 1975, there was like a hiatus between 1970 and 1975, where they pretty much reintroduced the team and added Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird, and I think Sunfire.
I love Sunfire.
Yeah.
Thunderbird, wasn't that also Carol Danvers, or am I thinking of someone else?
No, I believe it was was it a Native American man, or am I misremembering?
Yeah.
Yes,
it's
no, that's my bad. There's too many characters with bird names.
Too many birds.
It's a lot of birds. Yes, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, was he the one that was able to have this make this large projection of himself?
No,
is that the Dreamwalker guy?
Because it's not. It's not Warbird, because Warbird comes later.
Oh my god, there's too many.
There's a lot of and a lot of people don't know that the OG5, it looks familiar to a lot of people, but then not so much. We had Jean, Cyclops, Angel, Banshee, and who was the
Banshee comes later.
Okay.
So Angel, Iceman, Beast, Cyclops, Marvel Girl, and Professor X.
But then what's weird is that Banshee is actually one of the older characters, and then he never gets in any of the adaptations.
He gets introduced later on by he is working by Force Factor 3. So he had some kind of cursed headband that had a bomb rigged to it. So he was fighting the X-Men, and then they were able to get it off, and he's able to tell the X-Men about Factor 3 and the dangers they pose.
But yeah, so
we can get real deep.
We can get real deep into that. But it is interesting, though, just looking at if they were going to create this whole new, basically cinematic universe with this one movie. And it's really interesting thinking kind of the choices they had to make as far as which characters they picked and the age of those characters. And I do think that not making so Rogue's her role in this movie, as I see it, is similar to Jubilee in the animated series, in that she is a young girl who is like, "What's this? What's this? This is interesting," and then has this father-daughter relationship with Wolverine. So I kind of felt like it was a little bit of just a stand-in for basically Jubilee, a little bit, and it's like you're seeing. And Wolverine, they both come in at the same time, but you're also kind of seeing what Iceman lovingly calls mutant high, through the eyes of a confused girl. Yeah. And I think that it is sweet to see Logan starting to have this fatherly instinct. I just don't think Rogue was the right character for that. You could have done that with Kitty Pryde, you could have done it with Jubilee, and Jubilee actually
in the comics it is
makes
Kitty
a real
Pryde.
short. Yeah, in comics, sorry, not in the comics. In X2, Jubilee is there for 2 seconds. She's one of the kids that are trapped, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm a little less critical about it because I really do love their relationship in the film, and I think it works really well for the story that they're telling.
Oh, definitely, but they just had to totally change Rogue's personality to make it work. If she was a sarcastic girl that stuck up for herself all the time, she couldn't have played this helpless role.
Well, if she had started out as a bad guy, like in the comics.
Nice.
But it's very much like Kitty Pryde. in the comics, because after Jean Grey dies, Cyclops pretty much takes a hiatus, and Kitty joins the team.
Yeah, I think what they may have been wanting to do is the fact that why use Rogue in particular, because I think it sort of works for the character to have someone whose power is, they basically can't touch anybody, and so they're isolated. And so I think that's why that choice was made. And while I have this picture up, I do want to say that I think this is an absolutely beautiful scene. I love, what Logan says to her, about, trying to talk her into going back, saying there's not many people that'll understand what you're going through. But, he thinks that Professor X is one of them. And, it's just...
It's really touching.
It's a touching, emotional scene before we plunge back into the action stuff with Magneto storming in. And
I love that when, oh my God, and Ian McKellen, literally every single line, he doesn't just deliver it, he freaking kills it. And that line where he goes, like that magnificent metal doesn't run throughout your whole body, does it? It's just like, you're gonna get owned, Wolverine. It's like because Wolverine seems pretty indestructible until you meet a guy who can literally bend. He's a metal bender. So it's like, you're gonna get really owned by Magneto. So it's really nice to see, Wolverine kind of, his greatest weakness basically is Magneto, and they always have a really interesting dynamic in any adaptation.
Yeah, somebody said it earlier in the chat where it's like, that was a really great time to be Ian McKellen. Just because, being Magneto one year and then Gandalf the Grey the next year, and two completely different performances, and he's just stellar in both. And and going back to that first scene that you see him in, as Kelly was saying, it's so great between him and Patrick Stewart. Just what are you looking for? I'm looking for hope. I will bring you hope, old friend, and I ask only one thing in return: don't get in my way. It's just so beautifully delivered, and he's just a genius. Absolute genius.
Can we talk about Cerebro?
Let's do that, but let's go ahead and take a break first, since we're an hour in. And just going to talk about what's coming up next week. We're going to be...
And we are going back to it after that. If you are new to the channel, this is a mid-roll. It happens in the middle. Lots more X-Men talk after this.
Yeah.
I always want to say that because I don't want people to leave.
Next week, we're talking about the film Pan's Labyrinth, which is also another one of my favorite movies. You might notice a trend. Whenever I say a movie's coming up, you can pretty much guarantee it's one of our favorite movies. We don't tend to talk about stuff we we don't like.
I want to have a stream where we just talk about a crappy movie, but that's my dream.
So we're going to have Cecilia from Geeksterilia on to talk about that, and also our wonderful friend Steven Stark will be joining us as well. And then going into the next month, we haven't completely nailed down all the movies we're talking about, but we're going to be covering films for Black History Month. So I know one movie that we're all set to do is Hidden Figures, which we're going to have Monaro on to talk about. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And we're working on a couple of different ones. We'll keep you guys updated as we figure those out. But yeah, it's going to be a fun month. And but yeah, I'm really looking forward to Pan's Labyrinth next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Amy, what do you have coming up?
Oh boy, do I have stuff coming up, John. I'm going to keep it as quick as I can. I know John and I are both going to be on Here Be Dragons tomorrow, Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be joined by the beautiful and wonderful Erin, and we are going to be talking about the first 3 episodes of WandaVision, which I watch remotely with my bestie down here. So we have been watching WandaVision every Friday and then talking about it together. So Jenna has some great stuff, and I'm going to cite all of the wonderful things you've said, Jenna, because you kill it on the ideas.
They're not from me. I watch commentary and review channels too to get some of those ideas.
Cite Jenna, who cites the others, the
Wikipedia commentary channel.
But yeah, so I've been having a great job with Jenna, so I'm really excited to talk about that with my lovely friends over at Here Be Dragons. And yeah, please give Here Be Dragons a sub because they deserve it. So I'm also February 10th going to be over on the Unspun Yard, our lovely friend Nessie's channel. We have the second episode of Bleep the Patriarchy. Bleep it, y'all. And we're going to be talking about Bleep the binary and how the binary is a figment of all of our imaginations. And we are going to have the wonderful Lo the Links on. They have been on my channel 3 times now, and I am having them back on in February to do my 3rd episode of Buddy Banter. What is Buddy Banter, you might ask? Let me tell you, it is on my channel, youtube.com/Amy Blackfire. And I have someone on once a week to talk about a topic of their choice. And this was the first buddy I bantered with over here. So check out the episode I did with John. And I just talked with Micah Clark. We talked about DC on the TV. So I did a lot of DC yesterday. I'm doing Marvel today. We talked about shows and movies. And that was really fun. Okay, and then February 15th, I'll be on All Hail the Night's Queen's channel. I don't know what we're talking about yet because she might be moving her Ironborn stream till later. But what do I have coming up on my actual channel? Starting with that sweet, sweet Avatar: The Last Airbender content, my first video will be on the Air Nation, and I will be having Yogi, aka Archmaester Buzzkill, on along with Christina, Lady Triple, and perhaps Stephen Stark will also grace me with his presence. And I'm also going to have a video about black and white and yin and yang symbolism in Song of Ice and Fire with Bron Staries. He's this guy, he's okay, whatever. I'm going to have him on. And I'm also working on a video about Mulan and the story of Mulan and comparing that to Brave Danny Flint and Alara / Sorella in A Song of Ice and Fire. And I'm sorry I took forever. I am done.
Kelly, are you working on anything?
Not really. I thought I was going to be on All Hail the Night's Queen February 15th, but if that falls through, because I'm supposed to be on the Ironborn discussion.
Yeah, so she wants to have on Amanda Crowfood's daughter, who's like the expert on it,
right?
And she can't do that day, and she wants All Hail the Night's Queen herself wants to keep it on Mondays, so we might be doing that in March, Kelly. But you will be on, don't worry.
Okay. I've got a couple of other things that may or may not happen without, I don't have actual dates. So there's 2 others, maybe 3 other different channels that I might be appearing on. Until I get dates, I don't want to say who or what.
One of them is the Unspun Yard, though, for the 3rd episode of Bleep the Patriarchy. So I will plug that one. We're going to have.
Do you have a date for that? Because I need to write that down.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do March or April. We'll definitely get in touch with you because we unfortunately had to push back the 2nd episode. So we are behind schedule, which annoys me to no end. John knows more than anyone. I am the scheduling queen, and I obsess over. If I don't know like 3 weeks, the next 3 weeks of what we're going to talk about on Jollof, I literally break out in hives. So there's that.
You say that, but you've been making me sweat with the next couple weeks ahead because we haven't really had anything set in stone like beyond next week, and it was really making me nervous.
I really like the last minute improvisation, plans that you have to make. I think you guys have nailed it.
Well, luckily he has a co-host now, so if anyone ever cancels, we're just keep going. The train of Jollof keeps on a chugging.
For the Return of the King stream that we did, when I forget which one of you mentioned it, like the date of this one, I was kind of like, because you hadn't told me yet the date. I was just like, I'm gonna be on the X-Men January 23rd. Let me just write that down real quick. Okay. Yeah, so it was like I found out things like via live stream, but not while I've been a guest on the panel on the live stream. I was just like,
I'm watching, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna write that down so I can do that.
Well, technically, we were still giving you advance notice.
Yes.
And speaking of which, like I just have to say, I've been really excited to see that stream has gained steam in terms of how many people are watching it.
Congratulations!
It was on the lower end of the Lord of the Rings streams. I figured at the time because it was so ridiculously long. But it's risen up to, it's now our second highest viewed video on the channel.
Excellent.
So, and I think we owe that all to you, Kelly.
Oh, and Kelly, you're being updated now about your live appearance on All Hail the Night's Queen. She still wants to have you on, and we will pick something boat related. So go ahead and write that down, the 15th of February. Kelly, this is a good system. I don't know why you're downing our system. It works.
It's how I discover things. I'm just like, okay, hold on. I'm gonna disappear off camera real quick. Jot that down.
Jenna, when's your YouTube channel coming?
Yeah,
Never.
Oh, come
Never. No, I can't even have live chat on. Like, I started to have a panic attack, so no.
Oh, and AK, we are pretty sure is going to be on in February for Black History Month as well. We just haven't nailed down a date or a movie, AK, but you will definitely be on, girl.
Yeah,
so I hope that's what you're referring to, because if you're referring to something else, I've legit forgot something. And I feel bad.
That would be awkward.
Yeah, I didn't want to announce that because we haven't nailed down the movie or the date yet, so I didn't want to jump on that. But yeah, AK will be on the channel.
What?
That's
God, AK, what is it?
Oh no! I really hope she's effing with you guys.
Oh
now.
shoot! I hope so too, because now I'm racking my brain. Have I invited her on to something and I forgot? Oh my god!
This is what happens
AK!
when you're doing 50 million
AK!
things at once, Amy.
Did I forget something?
What does Amy have a full
I
schedule
have a
or
sticky
something?
note.
I made a joke about a sticky note. I was just joking.
I don't know. Our Lord and Savior, the Poppy War. Have you heard of it by R.F. Kuang? Available at your local bookstore. Buy it, read it, and I have some upcoming content about it. You're right, AK. I did forget something. The most important thing, indeed.
I've even referenced it in my name.
Yeah, Jenna's name is a reference to the Poppy War. I have a wonderful book club that I read once a week. Kelly and Jenna both come to it. I read one of the chapters, and then we talk about it, and then we just have fun. So, yes, shout out to that book club. Whoop, whoop. Yes,
Danny's
I didn't
there
mention
too.
the words. Yeah, that was solid, AK.
Yeah. All the blood drained
AK,
out of Amy's face.
This is why you're my sister, AK. Oh my god, you always keep me on my toes. All right, are we good for the mid-roll? People want give people what they want. They want that X-Men.
Like, oh my gosh.
I rarely get embarrassed, but I am embarrassed now. I will admit it.
Oh.
That was great.
Oh. I'm just a little hot, a little overheated. All right.
Okay, Rogue.
All right, sugar.
Okay, so I think we're done with the mid-roll now, so we can
Lord,
jump
we better
back
be.
Yeah, I don't know what Amy, what would you say is your favorite part of this movie? We're jumping all over the place, so
Yeah, we might as well. Like a scene. I really like the overall introduction of the mansion scene where you have Professor X talking about it, and as he's talking about it, he mentions, this is a place for, children to grow and be around others and learn to control their powers and get a good education. Like Rogue, she could stay here or she could go out into the world, an educated young woman. And then you have that scene of Iceman where Pyro, is like basically lighting up a fireball, and then Iceman freezes it. It's like the classic mutant, and he literally says, "Welcome to Mutant High." It's that really classic mutant high school feel that I think the mansion really represents. And then the way that it pans down and talks about the lower levels and it gets more serious. I think that's probably one of my favorite scenes, because that was such a necessary scene, especially for movie only watchers, to be like, wait, what is this X mansion? What is this school, Xavier's school for the gifted? So I think the intro of it was really well done. And so I really enjoy that scene every time. I think it's one of the scenes that holds up the best in this movie.
Yeah, what's interesting to me about that scene, and here I am bringing in my editor talk, but it's...
Now, if he mentions the score after that, then it's a double J-dubs moment.
Yeah, it's the way that scene, it flows very fast. If you look in the deleted scenes, each of those kind of moments, like in the classroom with Iceman and Rogue, and then the scene with Cyclops, teaching his class. Those are like individual scenes that you can watch in the extras, but it's all kind of cut down into this, one overall sequence. And the thing about this movie is it's actually quite short, especially by today's standards. I think that goes to show that they wanted this movie to just kind of move, because they weren't really sure if it would work. This was the first one. So I think the studio probably wanted a very, a relatively short, fast movie. And so it's kind of amazing what they're able to convey as far as like emotion in the story, given that they had to keep it down to, I think it's probably around an hour to 45 minutes, which, by today's standards is not that long of a movie. But yeah, I agree. I do think it works really well. What about you, Kelly? What would you say is kind of a highlight of the movie for you?
Oh man, Amy, get the bonk bat ready.
I would never get bonk one of my own. I am one of the horniest of us all. So
the fight between Wolverine and Mystique, my God, that is so full of sexual tension. Mm-hmm. Like, geez,
dripping with sex.
It's all the fighting that's happening in the in the museum. As someone who works at a museum, it is kind of upsetting, because it's like, there were some great fight scenes.
When you said that, the first thing I thought of was her legs around his neck, and just being like, that's very suggestive. Like, I have this exact picture in my head the second you mentioned that scene. And you're so right, Kelly. It is just very lots of undertones, we'll put it that way.
Yes. Sets up their their awkward moments in the next movie. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
I mean, Aegon's got it. Like, all of this, like, it's so obvious what they're trying to do there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just let you guys cover that one.
John's like, I'm going to be this. Zim has made an appearance. Aww. Jenna, can you introduce your furry friend to everyone who doesn't know him?
Yeah, this is Zim.
Oh,
he's not so usually allowed up on my lap on the table, or when we're at the kitchen table, but he was being really cute.
He says, but please, Mom. Hit the like for the cat. Gotta use that as a YouTube plug moment.
And now his cat hair's getting stuck in my lipstick.
Yeah, I forgot to like it. Oh yes, on like number 8. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you did there, Guilty Undertaker. Who cares what else the stream is about now? There's a cat on there. So no, that's good. It's like,
I'm gonna see if I can get him to sit down out of frame.
Far better than anything else that was going on. I'm sure.
This is the content that people crave, Jenna. Yeah. You're totally good. Jenna, what about you?
Favorite cat.
Well, if you can think with all that cute fluff in your face.
My answer is the same as Kelly's. I love that fight between Mystique, and mostly just because I love the way she fights in that. It's so weird, especially when she is crawling backwards up that pipe at one point. I just love how
a good fight.
It's just so unique. I love that fight, and even later in the reboots, the way that they have Mystique fighting is very unique, and I love it. So, and I think they were definitely inspired by this movie.
Yeah, which brings up an earlier question that somebody asked in the chat: Rebecca
Thanks,
Romaine
Patter.
or Jennifer Lawrence.
Rebecca Romaine. Sorry, I
I
love
want-
Jennifer Lawrence.
I'm a huge J-Law fan, so I want to say her, but not in that role. I love her in literally everything else. I loved her in Joy, which we're definitely going to cover, by the way, John. You don't know yet, but we are. And Silver Linings and Hunger Games, literally everything else except for that role. I think Jennifer Lawrence kills. So yeah, I'm totally with that OG Mystique for sure, all day, every day.
Yes.
I feel kind of bad that.
Rebecca!
Yeah, I mean, I do like Rebecca, but I feel bad that one of the main critiques people have of Jennifer Lawrence is that she wasn't willing to go through the hours long routine of putting on the makeup, and then they point to the whole shit show that the stuff that Rebecca Romaine had to go through. That paint was awful. It was toxic. It made her sick. Like, it was a hazard. Like, I don't really blame Jennifer Lawrence for not wanting to go through that, especially after multiple movies. But yeah, I think in this role, it's just not her strongest.
Yeah, funny how they complain about that, but Robert Downey Jr. is allowed to wear like a green suit while they computer generate the Iron Man costume on top of him. It's like strange
It's
how
almost like people don't listen to women's complaints and say, suck it up. But when it's a man, you're like, nah, sure, we'll accommodate you. Effing patriarchy.
But also, why is that something to aspire to? Why are we congratulating Rebecca for putting up with that shit when she didn't?
Yeah,
have to?
no one should have to put up with that shit.
They had an alternative. I was watching a behind the scenes recently of the makeup. The original makeup artist wanted to use a dye that was made with blue food coloring, but Bryan Singer wanted a different color that he couldn't achieve with that. So, like, she didn't even have to go through that. They could have used the blue food coloring paint and just had it not be as dark. But no, they had to put her health at risk and the health of all the makeup artists around her at risk.
Yeah, Kate, you missed
the blue
it.
that he wanted. Like,
Kate,
come
you
on.
missed it. You're gonna have to rewind later because it was very floof and very cute.
I see. My issue wasn't the aesthetics. It was Mystique is not a good guy.
Yeah.
The retconning, not great.
Yeah,
it's basically a different character.
Yeah, They always just say it's a different timeline and I'm sorry that I will die on this hill. That's such a cop out for lazy writing.
I'm sorry, but even in alternate timelines, she's more neutral. She will bounce back and forth, but she's not like that. She's not that good.
She was kind of a villain at one point, but then she ended up going back. And I don't know if that was a writer's decision because she was Jennifer Lawrence. They didn't want her to be a villain, or if it was something that Jennifer pushed for. Probably not Jennifer. So it's probably the fault of the writers.
She brings in money to keep her around.
Well, they do make that point that the whole, the crux of Days of Future Past is that this one decision she makes, either turns her into the villain that we see in the original films, or she goes a different direction. I do think
she can still be bad without them getting her DNA. Like
but they wanted to go in a different story direction, having already done it the one way. I'm sort of sympathetic to writers wanting to take things in a different direction, and they didn't want to just be going down the same road. But I will say that sort of the way the character's played and written is extremely different from the original film. So I just think it's a different take on the character, period.
I like AK's comment though, and that they, by doing what they did, it does put all of the onus on Magneto, and it doesn't have Mystique's own agency doesn't really come out. Is my main. It's always going to be my main argument as a feminist commentator, is that the woman's agency should always be taken into account. And when it's she went bad because she got with this guy, it's just always really lazy to do that. And it's too simplistic. The world is not that easy and not that simple.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Whenever John says okay,
Yeah,
I know that it's like
yeah.
he's like, that's your wheelhouse, Amy.
Yeah.
Gonna leave it there.
John, as
Yeah.
someone who has great respect for all of the incredibly talented comic book writers, to have the movie writers do this to Mystique, I think was
No, I'm not
wrong.
down with that way of thinking, because the films are the films. The comics are the comics. If they want to
Okay.
go in a certain direction with the films, I think that's fine. I'll accept critiques on a sort of the basis of it's done badly for the films, but not just because it's one way in the comics does not mean it has to be done that way in the films.
She's such a compelling villain, though.
I know, and I think,
and for her own reasons that have nothing to do with Magneto is kind of my point. And we obviously, when we get her in this movie, she is already all on Magneto's side, but she has that line, John, that I love so much in the helicopter scene when she says, people like you are the reason I was afraid to go to school as a child. She has experiences herself about why it's hard to be a mutant that are different from Magneto's. Because of the way he was he was discriminated against because of how he was born and that he was Jewish, and then she was discriminated against because of how she was born and that she's freaking blue, and yet she can change her form. And why I love that this Mystique is usually in her form unless she doesn't have to be, or unless she needs to be in a different form, is because she is just now able to have pride in her form. And that's a lot of Mystique's journey. And it's really left out in the Jennifer Lawrence performance. And I love Jennifer Lawrence, and she's very attractive. But let's not get to that. I have a thing for Jennifer Lawrence and other blondes in general. But my point is that this version of Mystique is very compelling, because she's not necessarily just doing what Magneto wants, but she's fighting also for herself and who she sees, like Magneto does. She sees her fellow brothers and sisters of non-binary mutants as a part of a family that needs to be liberated.
which is why I say that I do view them as different characters, because I think the motivations come across as very different, and the characters just overall come across as different. So I'm inclined to be more fond of the Rebecca Romaine version, the character. I'll leave silent various reasons for that, but but no, I do find that line very intriguing, Amy. Also, and it hits so hard. People like you are the reason I was afraid to go to school as a child. It's a fantastic line, and just in light of sort of, again, when I was a kid, I thought to myself, oh, that's a badass thing to say to this guy. But it's having grown up and understanding more of the world, it really hits hard, and it's, I think it's a great character, even though she doesn't, as a character who's very sort of silent a lot of the time that she appears on screen. I think it's very powerful when you do get moments like that. But yeah, but I do like Jennifer Lawrence as well. I like her as an actress, and I think that she plays the role well. I just think that the original version of the character is probably better. And how much you want to bet that Amy is going to fetch her copy of the Poppy War?
So it's within reach. Yeah.
My laptop is actually sitting on my copy of the Poppy War.
Real quick, the train station scene.
What was that?
The train station scene when Sabretooth and Toad attack. I do love that moment when, Sabretooth's like just gets like knocked the hell out, like on his back, and Toad's like, quit playing around.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to watch this movie and see freaking Ray Park as Toad, because it's during those years where, he was everywhere because he was Darth Maul. And like, he's just randomly cast as Toad in X-Men. It's like, okay. But
when they're leaving and there's the scene with when all the police show up, I watching it, I was like, why is he carrying Rogue? Like, Sabretooth's like way bigger and stronger. Like it's Toad's got her in the sack and like carrying her over his shoulder, and I'm like, why's the little guy carrying her?
Did you bring the Poppy War with you, Amy?
Oh my God, John, stop freaking knowing me so well. Because I went to the bathroom, and as I was coming back, I grabbed the Bible and my holy text. Please read the Poppy War. John, get out of my head. My God, I didn't even say it. How did you know? So not even subliminal messaging. It's like in your face messaging. Jenna, is this not an amazing? Thank you. Is this not an amazing book? Oh my God, thank you, John. Thank you for giving me that excellent opening to present it to everyone. Jenna's ahead of me actually because I'm taking insanely meticulous notes because I'm gonna write a crap ton of essays on them, and I wanted like a searchable file that I could just look for stuff. So. You know what? Nice.
No,
like my file on like crappy things Professor X has done.
Oh, nice.
Kind of is our running joke, like ever since and this goes back to when we first started talking, we very scarily are able to predict what's going through the other's head. So yeah, I knew you were going to do that because of course you are.
It's almost like we're on the same page.
Oh,
okay,
no.
I'm done.
So we
Am
were
I canceled? I don't know, chat. Tell me. Probably. I haven't been canceled yet this stream.
So we were just talking about, of all characters, Toad. And the fact that I was saying that it's funny because you look at this movie and it very firmly places it in the time frame of when Ray Park was like everywhere after being Darth Maul in Star Wars, and yeah, and also the fact that Kelly brought up that why is Toad carrying Rogue out of the train station when Sabretooth is right there?
Yeah,
It's because Sabretooth need to be available to be possessed and like grab Eric's throat.
Yeah, because I think a lot of that is because the plot demanded it. Because if Sabretooth was holding her and it was Toad doing that, you'd be like, Magneto could take him, right? But Sabretooth, not so much. But you could have literally had him set her down. And then, like, I don't know. It made no sense.
Do both. He can hold her and grab her.
He could sling her over his shoulder and then strangle someone. He's freaking Sabretooth.
I think it was like an overhead shot too, and I was like, why is the little person, like the smallest person, carrying another body?
But as long as we're talking about this scene, it's an opportunity for me to bring up the musical theme which accompanies it, and I can talk about the music. I love it. A lot of people view Michael Kamen's score to the first X-Men as kind of the lesser of the X-Men scores, but what I really liked about it is the fact that it's not really a superhero score. It's in keeping with this whole vibe of, it's got a mixture of electronics and orchestra, so it really feels like it's selling this kind of science fiction vibe that the film is going for. And in that scene, when they're walking out of the train station, there's this very sort of upbeat, almost it's an up-tempo piece of music that's basically Magneto's theme. Whenever you show him like walking or something, and it's kind of fun. It's almost militaristic in a weird kind of way. And then, the aforementioned theme for Mystique, which is very sort of exotic and just, it adds this element of uneasiness to the character, so she's kind of creepy. And
it's basically horns using a slide. It's like which is automatically to the ear. It creates this you automatically have a bit of an uneasy feeling. It's kind of like Jenna knows this because she played cello in orchestra and I played violin. We were in the same orchestra for a little bit in middle school and high school. But when you play the bow on a certain part of the string that is on the other side of the bridge, it makes that screechy sound. You know exactly. She's already and that's used in a lot of horror movies, but so is this that's like the horn version of that is the slide. It's like very unsettling for even someone who doesn't really have much musical knowledge. And that's perfect for Mystique because she is kind of offbeat and off color and kind of she's unsettling because she could be anyone. And you see that a lot more in the second movie where she's, just fooling people left and right. It's great. But that's what's really unsettling about her. She can be anyone's, and the theme matches that for sure.
John, that particular scene, I was actually shocked at how quiet it was. The music was very subdued because the sound effects of the guns being pulled out of the police officer's hands, being turned around, all of that is very heightened, and it's building a lot of tension for this scene, which doesn't require a lot of music. The music is very subverted and it's right there underneath the surface. But I thought that was really well done because I thought it was a dramatic moment, but the music didn't really build and into this big moment until later on in the scene when the gun goes off and that bullet is, that cop is like struggling.
I think a lot of the music of this film is much more subtle than you'd expect from a quote-unquote superhero movie.
Yeah.
And I think that the music got more aggressive as the series went on. Jokes aside, unfortunately, X-Men 3 does exist. And that score is very loud and sort of bombastic, and it's actually the score is, I'll say, like one positive thing about the movie, and it's that the score is well written. It's composed by John Powell, who did stuff like the score to Solo and How to Train Your Dragon. He's a very gifted composer, so the music is actually quite good, but it's a superhero score. It's an all-out superhero store, whereas Michael Kamen, the late Michael Kamen, who wrote the score for this movie, he was writing this score to accompany the film that was made, which is as I said, it feels more like a science fiction film than a superhero movie, and with social commentary and all that stuff. So it's more subtle. It's got sort of its creepy moments, it's quiet moments, and very sort of the overall, if there's an overall X-Men theme, it's kind of a sort of lyrical orchestral piece that plays over the main title and appears throughout, but it's not a very aggressive score. And I think that's kind of what I like about it.
And that scene is heightened too by Jean Grey and I just hit my knee. That scene is heightened by Jean Grey and Professor X. The looks back and forth that they get each other. They don't really talk at all. Everything is through the eyes. And Patrick Stewart freaking kills that scene. And that one line Ian McKellen just delivers every line beautifully, but I really like that one. He says, "Don't think I can stop them all." And it's like, oh, shit's going down. Come on, Professor X. Like it really gets you on the edge of your seat the first time watching it. And I love it. I love that scene so much. And it also shows that the difference between Professor X and Magneto is that Magneto is willing to make what he would consider sacrifices and Professor X is not. And that is a big difference.
Ironic.
Yeah.
Considering how much of an asshole he is.
You're right.
Well, no, the thing is, and Magneto, like, as much as we do sympathize with his perspective, he is also, when he talks about sacrifice, but he's not willing to sacrifice himself.
We have that amazing line by Wolverine. If you're really so righteous, it'd be you in that thing. And I'm like, mic drop every time that line comes.
You're so full of yes.
That's one of the best. And Wolverine's also speaking for the audience at that point. You feel that way too watching. You're like, what are you talking about? Sacrifices must be made, and yet you won't sacrifice here. True sacrifice is willing self-sacrifice.
Well, because
right?
he wants to be there to lead the new world order.
Right.
Everything
He's
goes
just
his
as
way.
narcissistic as Professor X. They're actually really similar. And that's another reason that I like the comics, is that comes out even more clearly in the comics, that actually they're two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Kelly's like, boy, do I know.
And that's the thing that I've picked up. I'm going to go ahead and show this.
Off
This
your swag.
This is one that I had been reading, which is it's called X-Men Season 1, which is basically a retelling of the original stories from Jean Grey's point of view. So so it's much better in that regard, actually, because at least it's coming from a more feminist point of view, I would say. But you can see even there that how darn similar those two characters are. It's not necessarily that way in the films. I like I said, grew up on the animated series and the film, so I'm sorry, I love Professor X. But I see when I go back and I read the comics how that's just not not quite the same thing. He is very narcissistic, and they are, as you say, two sides of the same coin. But I love their relationship in the movies, especially this final scene that's up right here. I just think it's beautiful, this story of these two old friends who are on such opposing sides, of this conflict, and it's really, if I would say the core of these movies is especially these first two, it's about, or rather, especially this first one, is you've got Logan and Rogue, and you've got Magneto and Xavier. Those, I think, are the two core relationships that drive these movies, and I just think it's beautiful the way it's told. And when you get to Days of Future Past, there's a scene where Magneto is like, all those years fighting each other, Charles, to have a precious few of them back. And that was a moment that really got to me, just because of everything that's been built up through these early movies. So yes, I'm sorry. I liked I really like the Patrick Stewart Professor X, because that's who I
this is a very uncomfortable part of him. Yeah, especially in the early comics.
That happened in issue number 4, I think.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Me Too going on there with Professor X being a little bit too into the and that's the thing. The original 5 only had Jean was the only woman, so she was the girl of the OG team, and so Professor X, like, everyone basically had a crush on Jean the first 15 issues. But Professor X, very creepy, right, Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say, I had not read those.
John, are you okay with teachers and students sleeping together? Comment.
Well, clearly, I think that's been illustrated thus far. But no, I hadn't. Was my first exposure to those original stories at all, and I feel no compulsion to read the actual original issues, as as problematic as Xavier comes off in this version. I'm sure it's even worse. And those.
I just checked. It was number 3. Sorry.
Off by 1 issue. Get out of here, Kelly.
So going back to when the scene where Wolverine is being introduced to the mansion, pretty much, by Professor X, when he's trying to convince him that he's going to try to help him regain his memories back, he's like, I can help you. And then he's projecting all these weird voices in Wolverine's head, and he's looking around like, what the hell? I was like, you're going to help him by freaking him the F out? He could have just come in his little mind ender comment, hey Logan, it's Prof X. You know what? Go ahead and come upstairs. We have sandwiches. Yeah,
but instead he was
just do it in the creepiest freaking way ever. That's
classic Professor X, though. He thinks he kind of knows what's best for everyone, but
and there is that moment in X2 where Magneto's like, you haven't told him about his past, have you? And it's like, I've, set him on the path. And, it's like, dude, just tell him.
Stop playing God. And that's the main thing about Professor X is, and this is how he's similar to Magneto, and they both play God at certain points in their storyline. Yeah.
But I can't not love Patrick Stewart. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen.
Can we talk about my least favorite character though? Scott, Cyclops. Go ahead, Jenna. I know you want to talk about baby Scott. What do you think about him in this movie, Jenna?
Oh, I think he's insufferable. I hate him.
I love Logan's line about your power to deal with that guy. To be able to deal with him.
Scott can't help that his older brother is like way cooler than him.
Oh my god, yes. It's his older brother's Alex, right?
Yeah.
Havoc. Havoc is way cooler than
he also has another brother, Vulcan.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think that James Marsden actually does a bad job, but coming off of the animated series where, Cyclops is always passing out, but at least he comes across as like this, a leader type who, he's like, he's buff, he's he has a commanding presence. In the movie, he's just like, I'm sorry, James Marsden, you're just a pretty boy who's kind of like, I don't buy that you're the leader of this team.
And I want to put this back up, though. You guys may have seen the meme, but Wolverine's costume is to Batman from the side kissing.
Stop.
Cannot unsee. Two Batman's kissing. I'm sorry.
Every time you mention that, I have to work really hard to block it out so that I
will never let you forget, John. I
won't think about that every single time Wolverine is on the screen.
I think that I think Scott Summers has been kind of like Storm subdued in the case of the movie. He's a lot more bold and he's a very effective leader in the comics. We call him boring because he's kind of the teacher's pet, but he's not like dull. He's just not a rebel. He's not like his brother Alex. Alex is just like out there and very very roguish. Wolverine, straight up rebel. And then you have like when Wolverine starts leading the X-Men, you have another rebel, which is Quentin motherfucking Quire, Kid Omega, one of my favorites, by the way. So it's like Cyclops is the standard you want to be when it comes to being a leader. And I can kind of see why Jean fell in love with him. I don't know why Emma was like all about him though. Jeez. Emma Frost.
So franchise had a huge horn for Wolverine.
I get that Jean and Scott are the OG couple, and it's a thing. It's been a thing. They get married in the comics. And everyone's like, yay! I did not feel their romance in this movie. And I feel like
never really given a chance to develop either because this movie, you're just establishing everything. So it's established that they have a relationship. I think it's sufficient for, again, this is a short movie and they're not the focus. I think it was a mistake to take him out of commission for the majority of the second film. And then, and then after that, spoiler alert, in the movie that doesn't exist, if it did exist, he apparently just died all of a sudden.
The thing is, like, James Marsden wanted a little bit more, action and screen time, and not just reaching up and grabbing his, ruby quartz visor and firing. So they gave him like hand-to-hand combat against Lady Deathstrike in the second one, and he was like really excited about it. I don't think it was long enough. Bless his heart.
This line. GU, man. This line where this was well done, I will say. When Cyclops was like, how do we know it's you? Because they've been fighting Mystique. And then Wolverine goes, you're a dick. And he goes, and then Cyclops goes, okay.
That's
a really great part.
Actually, that's the thing I will say is something about his character that works really well in this film is the way Wolverine and him play off
the way they interact with each other.
Yeah.
And that's definitely we see that in the animated series too, where Wolverine is macking on his girl and then Scott's like, hey, don't be macking on my girl. It's a classic X-Men thing.
Do you know what's going on right now in the comics?
Do I want to know, Kelly? Tell me.
Come on.
Tell me.
Thruple.
No.
Oh,
Is everyone consenting and using
As
protection?
far as I know, their bedrooms are all connected.
Okay. I mean, hey, I'm very into
good for
style ideas of dating. So,
Amy, I do need to. I want to let you borrow my House of X Hoxpox book. Send it to you, and when you get done reading it, you can send it back to me.
Okay.
Because it's like
I need to just go ahead and resubscribe to Marvel Unlimited and start reading the comics from issue 1 again, because it's been so long since I've read an X-Men comic, and it is one of the most pleasurable things in the world.
I recently read I can't remember which one it was. It's a run that Joss Whedon wrote. I think it's New X-Men. Yeah, it's New X-Men because Emma Frost and Cyclops are a thing, and she's like projecting images in his head like that she's Jean, and he's like,
"Ooh,
stop it!" No, he's like, "Stop it!" And she's like,
"You could turn that into a king."
Oh,
Come
he's
on,
so like,
Scott is so boring.
He's like, no, and then he looks in the mirror and it's Wolverine, like he's Wolverine, and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And she's like, "Oh, come on, you know you wanted to be him."
Nice.
I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, Wolverine is scrappy, but he's also a little sexy. He's a little short guy that short people, we have to be loud. That's just what we have to do. Kelly, do you think we'll ever get Madeline Pryor anywhere? Do you think they think it's too confusing for audiences?
I mean, like with the whole, I think Mr.
The TLDR's Madeline Pryor is a clone of Jean Grey.
Yeah.
And has a son with Scott. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't rule anything out with the MCU because
I think
they decided
as
to bring
the Goblin Queen, we need this.
Well, because they brought in Guardians of the Galaxy with a little talking raccoon, so it's I feel like they're going to be willing to take risks.
Like Mr. Sinister, because they're already like messing around with like genetics and stuff, and it's like Mr. Sinister has he's collecting everybody's semen. I mean DNA. Sorry. So, all these questionable kids, like, what? How do all these people have the same last names? It's like, oh, it's so-and-so's kid from a different timeline, or it's so-and-so's kid, but with like a clone of them. Poor Jean, like she's got to deal with like Rachel, Nathan, Nate, Hope.
Yeah.
And when I say Nate, I mean Nate Gray.
Yeah.
Not Nathan Summers. But X-Man, the X-Man.
Yeah.
So it's like
lots of stuff.
And she's just like, fucking hell. Like
I think what they're doing with WandaVision though has shown that you can do these kind of high cerebral, crazy concepts on screen. And I really do hope that the MCU, once they are done with whatever and they start actually like fully leaning into the X universe, that they start doing the more crazy crap we get in the comics. Like there is a whole speaking of Scott, there's a whole part in the comics where he meets his dad in space, and his dad is a space pirate. And it's an alternate version of Scott going off and being a space pirate with his dad. And I need this, Marvel.
I remember that.
And his dad is like has this weird mustache. Anyway, it's
isn't his dad, the space pirate in the animated series?
Oh. I don't know because we're doing a rewatch now, and the last time I saw it was so long ago. We're not on to. We're going to go on to season 2 soon.
I think when they go into outer space for the whole,
Oh, I'm so excited to watch it.
I think he's in there once they start getting into like the Shi'ar Empire and all that stuff.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Anyway, my point is Scott has some actually really crazy stuff in the comics, but they always I think pick a much more milder version of him for the movies, and he's he's just boring. I listened to Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. It's a really great podcast. Check it out. They are not paying me, unfortunately, to say that. Jay, that's Jay's favorite character is Cyclops. And I'm like, how? And I've listened to 200 episodes and I still don't understand how. But apparently, allegedly, he is the favorite characters of some people out there.
There's
I'm just gonna say, like, as quote unquote boring as Cyclops is represented to be in the films, I will say that James Marsden does a much better job in these early films than I in my opinion, that I'm looking up his name, Ty Sheridan does in the prequel films. He's just like, there's no character there.
Very
it's
one
like
note.
a cardboard, cut out of a character that just unfortunately, I don't think those films worked particularly well outside of integrating the, like, in Days of Future Past it worked because you had this balance between like the original X-Men cast and the new cast, and I felt like the film overall really it came together because of that. But especially after Days of Future Past, I don't think they knew what to do with that next generation cast.
Maybe it would have been better if he had a bunch of unused pockets. The whole time he's just walking around with pockets that he's not using. That would have been great.
I think that's still like a Rob Liefeld influence.
Oh, it's so great. Do you want to then transition into talking about Jean? Or did you have some more to say about Cyclops? I thought we might touch on the girl with the only one without a code name, Miss Jean Grey. Dr. Jean Grey. Pardon me.
and let's talk about the fact that Famke Janssen. I don't know how to pronounce
Famke.
her. Famke. She.
Dankeschön. Sorry.
Dankeschön.
Damn it, I forgot you know German, Jenna.
We're gonna get into all the great things about her character. She's a wonderful character, all that, but like this was coming a couple years after GoldenEye, and I had feelings, about her casting. I was very happy. So okay, that's all I'll say.
Feelings down below, John. Sorry, guys. I was just gonna make the subtext full on text. I really like her in X2 with the shorter haircut. She gets a little bit more. We start to see her powers become more powerful. But I will say I did like in the scene where Toad like puts his slime over her mouth and she's like that was really well acted. That was probably one of the best like just physical comedy moments of this movie is from Jean Grey. That's funny.
Aaron's actually coming to my defense on this one. Yay.
Jenna, what do you think about Jean Grey in this movie? I gotta kick it over to my bestie, John. Be quiet. Let her talk.
Probably controversial, but I thought she was boring, and it's because they nerfed her. So, I don't know. I just feel like anytime you nerf a character, it usually makes them more boring.
What does nerf mean? I'm sorry, I don't know.
They underpowered her.
Oh yeah, just like with Rogue, they depowered. Yeah. Yeah, you do see. I mean, I think actually, I would say though, Jenna, the reason they did that is so when the third movie that was allegedly made, when she went super, super powerful, it was like a huge, and then the second movie, she got more powerful, and then the third movie, she got like out of control powerful. I thought it was more of it was to show her kind of progress, I think. But she was underpowered.
It still seemed like she struggled to do even the most basic things. Like everybody around her could do way more than she could. But I haven't seen X2 in a while. I think I did like her better in X2. I have to say my general thoughts. I love this movie, but at the same time, I think a lot of the characters were written pretty weakly, and I think X2 is better. So, unpopular opinion. Sorry.
Okay, so there's a moment that's very, very subtle.
How dare you?
After they win, they defeat Magneto. It was so after Wolverine pretty much damages the pieces on the machine that is causing the radiation to kind of bubble out and come down, and it says, you know, when it touches the mutants, they're not affected, but it kickstarts the X gene or creates an X gene in regular humans. The piece is destroyed, it retreats after it covers the team, but there is a very like micro moment where Jean is like so it's, and she's closest to camera. There is a very quick moment where she looks like she has been affected, and in the comics, she takes the radiation when they are making that rescue. This is how she gets the attention of the Phoenix Force, and so I think there are a couple of like moments in the movie where I think, okay, there has been some kind of psychic barrier that has been broken, because after she reads Logan's mind, that's when he has his nightmare.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I'll have to go back and watch that again.
It's very quick. But that's when, you know, she's trying to hold the life cell together as they're making their way back to Earth. So she essentially like read the pilot's mind. So she's, you know, driving the spaceship, and the spaceship's being blown apart. And she starts she's taking all this radiation, and her power, she's using her power all she can to try to just hold herself together and keep herself alive. And it's the radiation that is killing her rapidly. Normally, of course, you know, a normal human would quickly die. But that's when she starts calling out, and the Phoenix Force, whom she already had the Phoenix Force's attention as a 10-year-old, because she mentally linked up with her best friend Anne as a child when she was dying, Annie or Anna. So Jean already had the attention of the Phoenix Force.
That's interesting, though. That is a small detail that could go into.
It was very quick.
Because I felt like the only foreshadowing for Phoenix came in X2, but if we interpret the scene that Kelly's talking about in the way that she's interpreting it, actually from X1, they were prepared for the Phoenix.
It was very subtle, but it was like
And Phoenix is, I mean, this isn't an unpopular opinion, I don't think, one of the best, if not the best, X-Men arcs, and that's why as X fans we get so mad that they've tried it twice and failed twice.
Yeah.
Because it's so good. It's such a good idea. And, you know, other than there's Scarlet Witch, but other than her, Jean Grey is the most powerful mutant in the X-verse. So you gotta use that Phoenix, you know, kind of thing going on. So I would love, Kelly, if they actually had that kind of foresight and that was what they were doing with that scene.
It might have been some kind of like, you know, psychic breakdown that they wanted Jean to have in the next one. Maybe not, you know, Phoenix Force, but like, you know, having, you know, someone with a powerful mind start breaking down. AK.
I think they should do the Inferno time storyline, which no one has ever attempted, where all of New York, all inanimate objects turned into devils, and it's awesome.
Oh my gosh, why do so many objects become sentient beings? Like
I know.
Cerebro becomes Cerebra. Krakoa becomes
ship. There's that ship that is sentient, that was made by what Apocalypse was piloting. Anyway,
it's
this
called
is all
Ship.
Ship.
It's called, that's its name.
It's Ship.
It's Ship.
And
really?
It's a ship.
I do want to say
I'm out.
I just want to say that I think as far as moving into the Phoenix story arc where X2 was leading towards, you know, it's disappointing that we didn't get the X3 that was originally meant to be, you know, with the original director, but and I also feel like, I don't know if this was originally part of the plan back before they changed directors, but I remember when X3 was going into production and they said it's going to be the end of a trilogy. I'm like, really? because at the time, I mean, now it feels like, okay, it was a trilogy, but at the time, I remember feeling like, no, they're just ramping up. Why would you try and cap off the story now with a third film? Because obviously, if you're leading into the Phoenix story, that's big and expansive, and that's not, you don't want to close off the story already. And then when they said they were bringing in all these other story elements, it's like, no, you can't.
That's doing a lot at once.
Yeah, you can't just have the Phoenix as one part of a final film. It just was always going to be a disaster no matter what. So yeah, it's
at least the with the newest movie, it was like a self-sacrifice that Jean did, and my God, Sophie Turner was like freaking perfect, because as far as I'm concerned, Sansa Stark is Jean Grey.
The casting was so good, and that's why I saw it twice. And
except for Cyclops.
I want to like it. Oh God, yeah. But what I did like about Dark Phoenix, even though I was disappointed about it in many ways, is that they did, like Kelly was saying, do the kind of the classic X-Men in space. Her friends are gonna die, so Jean puts her body in the way of this crazy cloud of who knows what to save her friends. She thinks she's gonna die. She has no idea that what's to come, right? What this energy is, but she knows that she can save her friends, and that's what she does. And so that is beautiful and an important part of Jean Grey's character. And it is, I will always be really mad that she doesn't ever really get a name other than Jean Grey. I don't understand. Like, is there any other X-Men that is like that? And you think, oh, but there's not a cool name to make for psychic powers. I give you Psylocke. That's a cool name. I don't understand why she's just Jean Grey. But then we wouldn't maybe necessarily get Psylocke, so I really like her, so I'm cool with that. But Jean Grey has so much potential, and she's been there since the 60s. She's been there since issue 1. And so I was so excited to see her on the big screen, and it wasn't until X2 that I felt like they were sort of getting there with her character.
Guys, I don't know how many times Jean Grey's been resurrected in the comics. Like, I think so 9. Yeah, I think so 9 times.
Yeah, and then you had, like we said earlier, Madeline Pryor, who was one of her, who was her clone, and then her clone also has all these, is faced with death constantly.
Yeah, Rachel Summers shows up, and she's like, "Where the F is my mom? Who are you, lady?" Madeline, what? So,
I will say on this, Alicia, like an alien plotline is part of the Phoenix saga. It's just they did like this weird, different, crappy version of it. So,
well, if I remember correctly, it's because there were issues with the fact that the MCU was taking storylines that they wanted to use, like the Skrulls and the Shi'ar. Like they also were going to have like an end battle that was really similar to Captain Marvel's, and that's why they reshot the final showdown in Dark Phoenix. It's because they had shot it. Captain Marvel came out. Captain Marvel's final battle looked almost exactly like theirs. So they had storylines that they wanted to pull from, but they were already getting taken by the MCU, so they kept having to change things. And Jessica Chastain's character went through multiple changes because they couldn't decide while they were writing it and filming it what they wanted her to be, because they kept having to change things because of the MCU.
I would love to see that previous cut. I would actually love to see that, but the pre-Captain Marvel release.
Another reason for me to dislike the MCU.
Hey, no.
Yeah, my bestie is one of the biggest MCU fans, so none of that on this particular stream, John.
Hey, no, I'm going to have to put up with pro MCU talk.
They could have done it. They could have just stuck to the ending anyway. Yeah, there would have been criticism that, oh, Dark Phoenix ending is just like Captain Marvel's ending, but they're both very powerful characters who battle in space a lot. It's not like they're just similar. They have similar character, like, it's not their fault that they're so similar in a lot of ways.
I'm going to be standing my ground, Aaron. All right. And you're going to be having to look at this clean-shaven face the whole time.
He did that just to torture you particularly, Aaron. Yeah. We were talking about that before he started streaming, and he said, I shaved to annoy Aaron. He said it right to my face. So we talked about, so what other characters do we want to talk about? We can obviously talk more about Jean Grey, but I just didn't want to leave anyone out. I mean, we could talk about, what cinema history has had a boner for the whole time. Wolverine, I guess. We can talk about him. Talk about him. I don't know.
I mean, I absolutely love I've loved this character since I first watched the animated series, and I loved the way he was done in the films. Even though I know a lot of fans, say grief for or have problems with the fact that he's taller than he's supposed to be, and all that stuff. But I mean, I've loved Hugh Jackman's performance all the way from this first film to Logan, which I think was one of the best films of 2017. So, yeah, I'm absolutely pro Wolverine.
My main problem is it's so oversaturated with Wolverine stuff. And I will just say, and I'm going to just say my piece right now. It's such all the boys like him. He's like,
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
It's
just like, oh my God, he has knives. How manly. Yay, we like him because he's a sign of masculinity. And I'm just not here for it. He's...
So I think I've had this conversation with John before. Like the hypermasculine
masculinity of him
tend to be like the most liked. Hulk, Wolverine, and Punisher. Like those are the most like hyper masculine. Like,
and I've told you, John, to notice in the animated series, he never actually stabs people. He can only, because of the TVY7 rating in the animated series, he can only stab robots. So in the animated series, when they're fighting people, he just tackles them all the time. It's kind of useless.
I'm really going to take issue with the whole, the fact that he's hypermasculine is the reason why I like the character. Because Amy, I think I just recently did a stream where I, complained about, hypermasculinity and.
Were you perhaps a buddy who was bantering on my channel about such a thing?
Yeah, I like his character and the fact that I love the movie Logan so much, which is not to say that he doesn't do, his fair share of, action in that film, but that's a very introspective look at the character that's been developed over all these years on screen and what makes him tick and his emotional bonds to characters like Xavier and in that film, his daughter, played by the wonderful Daphne Keane. I've grown to love the character, and no, it's not just because he's got claws and he, kicks a bunch of ass. That's like, okay, as a kid, I'm sure I really did enjoy that stuff, but for me, there's a reason why I've enjoyed the character for over 20 years. And
that reason is, John?
I've just talked about his relationships with the various characters. Logan would not have been as satisfying as it was if there was no depth to his character. That's seen the evolution of his relationship with Professor X over the years and the culmination that reaches in that film and his bonds with, his dynamic with,
his basic immortality does make him interesting, John. I will give you that. And that he has lived, he's going to see a lot of the people that he loves dies, and his age is kind of all over the place. And I hear angry page turning.
I want to show John this because I think he'd really like it.
Ooh.
Nice.
X23 taking notion.
Yeah. Which, by the way, and I actually think this is one of the things that makes me sad about, the MCU taking over X-Men is the fact that now we're not going to get that Logan sequel with the X23, taking on the mantle of Wolverine, which I would have really liked to see, but that's going to go out the window now. So, but yeah,
probably.
But
I
go ahead.
I was going to back you up and say that I actually do like Wolverine, but really only because I think Hugh Jackman did such a great job, in his acting being the character. That's pretty much it.
I think Logan is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Well, Hugh Jackman, after this movie, literally his agent could not pick up the phone fast enough for job offers. I mean, Hugh Jackman was the shiz after this movie. Everyone knew who he was. And I found that really interesting that of all the characters, I think Hugh Jackman's portrayal of Wolverine does stand out the most in pop culture. Doesn't necessarily mean it's my favorite thing in the whole world, but it is so impactful to our overall culture.
Yeah, characters for me kind of live and die by their actors and how well that they are portrayed. So most of my problems with the characters in this movie comes from the fact that I feel like a lot of that acting is just lacking. It's not all there. But Hugh Jackman seems so comfortable and just so familiar with the character or his interpretation of it. It's just Wolverine. He's just Wolverine. I don't have to be convinced that he's Wolverine. He's so personable. I don't know. He's a tough guy and everything, and he's a bit of an asshole, but there's just something about the way that he acts him that I feel like elevates his character above a lot of them. That's my unqualified opinion.
Whereas all of us have qualifications to have opinions, Jenna.
Yeah.
I'm not a literary or movie critic or anything. Which is, I was going to take it back. At the very start of the stream, I started to say no disrespect to Sir Patrick Stewart, but I really feel like this is one of the most boring performances I've ever seen him do, and that's part of the reason why I don't like Professor X as much.
Jenna, thank you for your first and only appearance on Jello, because John will literally not let me invite you back after that. So we had a good run, Jenna.
I love Patrick Stewart, but I was just like, eh.
Oh, it looked like he was in physical pain.
I think Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen together are basically the stars.
Together. Their interactions with each other are amazing. But away from Ian McKellen with everybody else, it's like, eh.
Jenna, you're still my best friend. Don't worry. You still have me, Jenna.
Yeah, you're not getting.
If anyone's canceled now, it's me.
Oh no!
Yeah.
On your first ever stream. No.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Well, on this stream,
J-Dubs,
we've established that people have opinions.
J-Dubs is going to probably fire me as his co-host, but I don't necessarily disagree with Jenna. I really like him a lot more in X2. But he does feel like Professor X, though. He does get the feel of that, father figure and all, but, compared to his other performances, it could be a tad dry. And John, that's okay, and we can still be friends.
Well, of course, I'm always willing for you to have a wrong take, Amy.
It makes him look better.
Never mind, I won't mention a certain season of a certain show, but whatever. You can also have wrong takes too, J-Dubs. That's why we're friends.
The season that never was.
Okay, so
not going there.
So I'm gonna shoot it over to our guests. Is there something we haven't talked about that you want to talk about, Jenna or Kelly? Do you have something that must be said on record live on YouTube?
I know I've complained a lot about the movie, but I really do like it. That's about it. Oh, Ian
what do you
McKellen.
think? I guess maybe one question I have is, what do you think about the evil plan that Magneto
I thought it was
has?
so dumb.
That was my.
I thought it was so dumb. It was just a way to kidnap Rogue, and I don't know. It's not like he could have spread it all over the planet. Like the whole extent would have just been like Ellis Island before she died. So it's like, oh, my master plan was to infect everyone on Ellis Island. Yeah.
As they were coming in with the boat, and they have like, so Toad is like going from guard to guard, like essentially crushing their spines into themselves, I guess, as he lands on them. And there's a crunch, and that guard is down. But they're bringing in this like replacement pummel or whatever for the torch, and it just looks like a big freaking penis under there. Sorry. Got another wrong opinion. It's just like because there's like, oh gosh. So yeah, it was being painted green in one of the earlier scenes with Toad. And then it's like it's covered with a tarp, and the wind is blowing and the tarp is blowing up, and it's just like you can see it, and I'm like, it's a big knob. That's all I can see. Amy, where are you with the bat?
I'm trying to find. Aaron is telling me something in the chat to scroll up, and I'm trying to find it. That AK had a question about Storm. I'm
one of the girls from that scary show. That scary show on HBO.
That's not narrowing it down.
What is the one? Dang it.
Lovecraft Country?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I found it. There we go. I could absolutely. Oh my god. So is she Letty from Lovecraft Country? I need to look this up. Hold on. Live research on the air.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. Let me.
I can't offer an opinion on this since I haven't seen the show yet. So
no. Oh, she's the one that plays the mom. Oh my gosh, I'm totally Is it one who plays Hippolyta? Oh, AK is yelling me at me right now. I can just feel it.
He says no. Ruby.
Okay, I could see that. I like that. Unfortunately, oh yeah, it. Yeah, it literally says Ruby right there, and Aaron is like, "Come on, Amy."
Yeah,
I've had similar in Aaron, and that is what I will use as my excuse. I unfortunately, because of Hollywood, they would make her lose weight, and I wish that wasn't the case, but they would, unfortunately. But so they would put her on, unfortunately, on a diet and exercise plan. But I would absolutely love. I think she would do really great. She's a very talented actor, so I think she would do a good job as Storm. But like I said, because of Hollywood being Hollywood, they would make her lose weight, which I do not like, but that's the way it is. Yeah, I know. AK is like, why would I say Letty? Just complain about like, I know, AK, I know. You can punish me for this later. But yeah, no, she was really amazing in Lovecraft Country. And she would fix the problem that we were talking about earlier of having mostly just light-skinned people of color cast as Storm. I think that she would be good for the role. She has some really amazing scenes in Lovecraft Country. If none of you have seen that, Jenna, you said you were going to watch it but haven't, right?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I'm surprised you haven't seen it since I've been annoying you to watch it a couple times.
I just now finished Sabrina. Okay, I've been really slow on finishing things.
We don't all have a time turner, Amy.
Allegedly.
I don't hear a denial.
She's reading.
I allegedly have a time turner. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess we've kind of already done our final thoughts, but again, I'll ask like any last just overall thoughts on the film, and if there's anything positive that you guys want to say.
Solid superhero film.
I said positive things.
Yeah. I think solid superhero film, in my opinion.
What picture is this? I'm going to put it up just because I can't see it, but okay. Gotcha. That's the cave scene. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just like randomly looking to see if we haven't used any of our pictures, and I think we are good on that. Yeah.
I just want to say that I think the thing that makes this film stand out, because it's not perfect. It has some issues. It's a fast-moving film, so it doesn't have, I think, the depth of character that X2 does necessarily. But I do really like the film's realistic tone, and the fact that, as I've already said a couple of times, I think it feels to me the most like a science fiction film, whereas later films felt like primarily like action adventure type movies, and I like that approach to this one, and yeah, I just like the realism from the opening scene to to just sort of the emotion it conveys, and I'm okay with sort of not as many like action scenes as some of the later ones had, but it was something that I was looking forward to for a really long time when it finally came out, and I still remember that feeling of being in the movie theater and the excitement of that. I think I was talking about that with you last night, Amy, when we got to that first scene of Wolverine with his claws coming out. It was like feeling like that little kid again, like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I like that I have that feeling whenever I go back to the movie.
I'm glad you're not talking about the texts I sent you. Like, what? Yeah, I can steal anything from here. Let me take this here sweatshirt. But not zip it up all the way.
And no shoes. He still ran around barefoot.
Yeah, just like
shoes would have been like the
hey,
first
look at all
thing.
these cool outfits. I need this sweatshirt here. Like zip it up like there so it kind of hangs off the shoulder, a little, little cheekiness going on. Mm-hmm. I was like,
cute.
I was texting John. I was like, I'm watching it. I was like, I really need a sweatshirt.
Okay, then.
Loot the gift shop.
Mm.
All right, so if there's nothing else, I'll just move on to, once again, just talking about what's coming up next week. We're going to be talking about Pan's Labyrinth, and we're going to have...
I remember renting it at Blockbuster. All the nostalgia.
What the F is a Blockbuster?
We're going to have Cecilia from Geeksterilia joining us, as well as my brother, Steven Stark. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then after that, we're going to be doing Black History Month. And the one movie we have nailed down so far will be the following week. Will be Hidden Figures. And we'll be talking about that with Monaro. And I know we're going to have AK on next month as well. We just haven't completely figured out which movie we're covering. So... yeah, and tomorrow there will be Here Be Dragons at 6:00, and Amy will be on there with all of us, along with who's that person? Oh yeah, Aaron.
Oh no, she's dying apparently.
Yeah, she's
and
dying.
So yeah, we'll have to endure some major pro MCU talk. So yeah.
And I will be quoting Jenna, quoting other people.
I'm
just kidding.
I'm gonna watch just so I can put my citations in the chat. Okay. Because I don't know, dude. No. I've spent enough time on the periphery of academia. No, you cite your sources. I don't want to take credit for anything that is not actually mine. Makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
this is for CR.com, comic book.
Yeah, Alicia says she's procrastinating.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot, AK. We are asking a lot of you as far as picking a movie and also having to deal with a lot of important issues at the same time. But yeah, you can always pick from our pre-approved list of movies, AK, or come up with a movie that you love. The main thing is to hopefully celebrate Black History Month as much as we can without being pessimistic. So
yeah. Okay, so yeah, and once again, I want to stress that Aaron, you'll be talking to this clean-shaven face tomorrow, so I hope you look forward to that. Amy, what do you got coming up?
Well, I have this YouTube channel that I talk about, and I also have this blog that I talk about. And have you heard of the Poppy War? Once again. Wait, there we go. I've converted Jenna, and if Jenna enjoys it, you'll enjoy it too.
Jenna, you do not have
to
it back underneath your laptop.
Well, I
You do
need
not
it for
have
the height.
You do not have to understand or like Chinese culture to like this fantasy series. Please read it. Anyway, I have a lot of stuff coming up. I said a lot of it during the mid-roll. I'm going to just keep it there. You can rewind if you want to hear those again. But like I said, please check out my YouTube channel. I put a lot of time into it, and so do my guests. And we love your likes and your watches. And if you subscribe, I take it as a very personal favor to myself. And I always am very happy to see that number uptick. And please follow me on Twitter and leave a comment. If you're not on Twitter, you can leave a comment in my videos. And I always appreciate your discourse. If there's something about the video that particularly interests you that you'd like to talk about, please comment. It makes me very, very happy to see people actually absorbing the content and having opinions about it. I am the queen of opinions. So yes, please check me out. And I'm also Amy Poehler, Poller. I love to poll my Twitter followers about what they think about stuff, about Avatar: Last Airbender or Song of Ice and Fire, His Dark Materials, or, for example, I did a poll on what my couple name with Lo the Link should be. Lomi won, so we are now officially Lomi. So very important polls going on over at Amy Blackfire on Twitter.
And in the spirit of all this self-promotion, I'll just say that if you enjoyed the stream and want to see more, go ahead. Which way am I pointing? Click subscribe in the corner.
Oh, geez. There's a little icon in the bottom right. You need a sub to John Webster Film. We are here every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern for your viewing pleasure talking about a movie. And you need this in your life. Please sub. We check them and we love them. So thank you.
Yeah, I know you guys don't have channels, but if you want to say anything before we sign off, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Thanks for having me on.
AMLO. What?
Both
or AMLO.
Both of you.
Someone came up with something later that was really awesome, but it wasn't in the poll, and I forgot what it was. Anyway,
I gotta ask everybody: has anyone like referenced my name, my screen name yet? Like, has anyone made a comment on it?
Sidorak?
Yeah.
No, or
Yeah.
No.
I don't know what you're referencing.
Oh man, Ruby of Sidorak is the source of Juggernaut's power.
Oh yeah, because he gets it from magic. He's not a mutant.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when we were watching the animated series, I completely forgot about, and I was like, "Wait a second, he's not a mutant?"
Yeah, he's not. And I believe the one that I grew up with, which was Evolution, which was not canon, just made him a mutant because they were like, kids don't get the difference. But I do like the animated series and that it is canon in a lot of really important ways. So.
Unlike in the film that doesn't exist. Yeah, exactly.
There is another Juggernaut, though, in another film. The hero is like, oh my god, the Juggernaut!
Once again, I want to stress that X-Men 3 does not exist.
Oh, I'm not talking about X-Men 3.
Wasn't he in Deadpool?
Yeah, Deadpool.
Yeah.
Deadpool 2. John, my heart.
All right. Well, yeah. Just in terms of X-Men movies, that's all I'm saying.
Deadpool 2 is an X-Men film.
Okay.
I agree.
Technically, yeah.
They were in it.
I love that scene where he opens the door and he's like, nope. And he shuts it. And I'm just like, I jumped off the couch. I was like, oh my God.
Wait.
Good stuff.
My name is Kelly Lowry. You can find me Jaded Redhead on Instagram and Twitter.
Why are you so jaded?
How long you got? That's good. Another stream.
I'm like so humiliated that I went so long thinking that it was jdedredhed.
That's how a lot of whenever she gives a super chat or has a great comment in the live chat, there will be some streamers that'll be like, we have a comment from jdedredhed. And it's like, no, it's Jaded. She's
okay.
Jaded. No, it's not okay,
I
Kelly.
couldn't spell when I was 19. It's fine.
Um, I
Still can't.
well, no, it's part of our dynamic that I can't actually admit when I know she's right. But it doesn't mean that she's not. I just can't admit to it.
Classic man.
Since John showed off like the picture, the present I gave him, I need to show off the present he gave me,
which I later got for myself.
And this is Present Corner on John Webster Film.
Thank you so much, John.
Oh no, but seriously, like if any of you love the animated series, you need that book.
This book is beautiful. I mean, it is so gorgeous.
Yeah, it's
high class coffee table book right there.
All right, Jenna, I know you have Jenna, I know you have Disney Plus, so we're gonna do I'm gonna do another animated film watch party with Jenna. It's happening. Sorry, animated series.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna start it. I'm like 2 minutes into the first episode. I keep meaning to actually start, but now I'll wait.
J-Dubs, where did you find that to send to Kelly?
It is on Amazon. Let me pull it up real quick. I know we were wrapping up, but if you all don't mind.
When we say we're wrapping up, that means we have 20 more minutes left. So
it did catch my eye when I was, because I was Christmas shopping at Barnes & Noble, and that book did catch my eye, because I was in the super geek section, and I was just like, ooh.
There's the geek section, and then there's the super geek
I was
section.
looking at Battlestar Galactica ship prints. The shipyards of Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica, and I'm like, ooh.
Here we go. I just posted the link.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, if you're at all a fan of the animated series, you got to get that. It's an absolutely gorgeous making of book with lots of artwork and all that stuff. Yeah, Aaron, you're right. The wrap up does take at least 20 minutes.
It does. It really does. And AK, you can totally join our watch party. I will DM you, girl. The more the merrier.
Yeah. And we're about to get into season 2, which is where things really start to heat up. I mean, from what I remember, at least, it's been years, but that stuff is seared into my mind. I absolutely love that show.
The art is based on Jim Lee, and I mean some of like the classic X-Men art Jim Lee does, and still does. He does streams on Twitch. And I got to watch him do a live drawing of Grogu with some Taco Bell, I believe. At least he had like a Pepsi and some
That
tacos
makes me hungry.
anyway. But it was like, I was like, oh,
Zim!
all right, we get to watch him draw. Cool.
Zim
Oh,
wants to
he's
say
drawing Baby Yoda.
hello to everyone again. Oh, Zim.
Yeah.
It says goodbye. I have no social media.
You need to make an Instagram for Zim, though.
Oh, no, I don't.
I do know, Amy and I were just talking about this last night. We are going to plan on having the X2 discussion in March, I believe. So you guys are more than welcome to come back.
This is a picture
that.
of Zim that Jenna sent me, and it gives me life, just so you know. There he is.
March?
She's got her pen ready.
We're going to nail down the exact date in March after we finish up the
But
stream.
we do want it to be sooner rather than later, so we're going to shoot for March if possible. So.
And yeah, maybe that'll be a little less chaotic, a bit more orderly since we've gotten all the other stuff out of the way. But
nothing you say matters now, John.
Okay, I'm done hijacking this. I'm done hijacking this recap. It was rude. I'm sorry.
John, you could have said anything you wanted at that moment, and no one would have heard you.
No one. No one.
Yeah, I
won't do this. If you invite me back, I won't do this again.
No, we need that Zim cam. for sure.
I think we were talking. We probably have plans to cover X2, Days of Future Past, and Logan, probably. So
that's what we've decided, and there are no other X movies that are worthy of our time. So,
but yeah, okay. I guess we can finally wrap this up. Thank you all for stopping by. Don't forget to check out Here Be Dragons tomorrow at 6:00. When we're going to be talking about WandaVision, and I'm going to have to endure Aaron talking glowingly about the MCU. But yeah, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.